One thing about YouTube, for all of its many faults, that I really like about is its independent factor. And that's because it's caused a lot of people to create things without the limitation of going to the scary big billionaire man at the top to make sure that the show is okay for them, and has ultimately even given those same channels the ability to have their own successful shows without the restrictions being as stringent. I mean, for example, you have Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, which is a super OG like puppet animation that came out a while ago, and it ended up not only getting its own series on TV, but then also even featured on shows like The Amazing World of Gumball, which was a really cool little Easter egg that they put in there. And then Smiling Friends is another good example, created by Psychic Pebbles, who started his journey on YouTube.
Don't listen to him, he's just showing off. All right, now do it the way I told you to do it.
Okay.
And most of the time when employees decide to make the very scary decision of breaking off into their own, many times the media they make is leagues better than what they were forced to make by corporations. And that's really with any creative medium. I mean, you have Ina, for example, which was an indie animation, which actually turned into a video game a few months back that I played, and I thought it was really good. Might release a video on this channel, I have no idea. And then you have, Happy Tree Friends. That's Happy Tree Friends. And even in the gaming space, you have games like Expedition 33, which is like a contender for Game of the Year at this point, and that game was made by a bunch of former Ubisoft employees. But today, guys, we're going to talk about a show that was featured on a channel you may be familiar with called Glitch Productions. Now, Glitch is a channel based in Australia that hosts indie animation of all kinds, no matter the premise, really. I would say that Glitch at the moment is the most famous channel that does this, where they will host different people who can animate and host different animations on that channel. But you also have channels like Mashed that basically do the same thing. Oh god, you guys remember Smosh Cartoons? They basically do the same thing too. If you remember Smosh Cartoons, you're probably like old as hell, dog. I'm not gonna hold you. The difference with Glitch though is that they host full-on shows, not just like 2-episode animations of something. And the shows that they end up featuring are greenlit depending on the amount of support the shows get by the community, which, as you can tell, is a lot of support. Now, if you don't know about Glitch specifically, you at the very least know about one of its shows by passing or by looking at the visuals, The Amazing Digital Circus. Easily their most successful show right now. Not to take away from the other ones though, because I definitely like shows like The Gaslight District as well. I think that show is incredibly underrated right now, and I'm very excited for season 1 to come out. Now, the newest show that has gained a lot of attention from people is a show that was announced all the way back in January called Knights of Guinevere, which is a psychological thriller sci-fi show about basically corruption and escapism. Acting as the independent studio's first fully fledged 2D effort, everything about the show is dripping with atmosphere, drama, and heart. We see an intriguing dystopian world filled with lovably flawed characters, all centering around a charming blue android named Guinevere. Basically, to make like a really SparkNotes version of what the show's about, it's about these two workers who find a scrapped version of Guinevere, who is obviously based on the typical look of Disney princesses, and they find the truth about this place called Park Planet, which once again is primarily based on Disney and all the restrictive measures about the company, which we'll get into in a little bit. Now, the commentary on said practices are visualized by one of the frontrunners behind the show, Dana Terrace, who, if you guys don't know, worked for Disney previously, starting off as a storyboard revisionist for one of Disney's most beloved shows, Gravity Falls, and then had the opportunity to make her own show at Disney called The Owl House, which I haven't watched personally, but I've heard really good things about it. Now, Knights of Guinevere as a show has been in a lot of drama, even before the show came out. Now, I would classify myself as someone who, I think I'm a very stark supporter of indie animation. I love indie animation from pretty much everybody. I try to watch as much as I can. There's obviously lots of drama when it comes to indie animation. For example, Vivzy Pop and the fact that she makes her characters curse more than my uncle when there's no kids around.
Welcome to the goddamn digital circus. My name is Kane. I am your bitch, and I'm here to show you the most horny, sex-appealing, pornographic imagery you've ever laid your eyes upon. Is that right, Bubble?
That's right, bitch. Suck me off until you're fucking dead.
And I don't know a lot about Vivzy Pop or anything, but some of the criticism probably is justified. From what I understand, things like the writing in Hell of a Boss, I know aren't great and whatnot, and there's a lot of problems with that, which is completely justified. I feel like the problems here is very unfair, because once again, The show isn't out yet. One example that I found while doing research for the video was when the show first released its teaser trailer, a lot of people were talking about what we talked about not too long ago about it being based on Disney and how corporate the company is, how it treats its characters, and she doesn't like that. Dana Terrace, through her working on the Owl House while at Disney, had a lot of problems with the company, and she wanted to express it with doing animation, which is completely understandable.
I could come up with any story. I was pissed off one day, and this became a cathartic release.
What were you pissed about?
Oh man. A lot.
That's fair.
I mean, this is how shows like Shrek, which is like one of the most beloved movies of all time, is quite literally a commentary on Disney. But it's also just like a fun show. Now, Knights of Guinevere is kind of more, I would say, in your face because of the character being designed similar to Disney princesses, the show taking place at a giant corporate Disney runway, and even one of the characters is literally based on Walt Disney. A lot of people were saying that this was going to be kind of Disney's evil commentary slop, while there was other people in the other extreme basically saying that, guys, she's not just Disney. This show is not about Disney at all. And I mean, obviously that's just not true. Obviously, I don't think her whole show is about Disney. She wants to make a actual story about it. She just wants to do it in a way that also has a commentary on Disney and whatnot, and I think that's completely fine. But this was like a big conversation back when the teaser trailer first dropped.
So Dana Terrace's Knights of Guinevere isn't even out yet, and already the discourse is kind of insufferable. Are there obvious allusions to Disney here? Absolutely. Is it likely Dana intends to comment on her time at Disney with this show? Of course. At the same time, I do think some are maybe reading too much into it, although there's also this other extreme where people are like, oh my god guys, please let her move on from Disney, this definitely isn't about that. And that's maybe going a bit too far. This show is already saying things about Disney, and I feel like calling it a revenge show against Disney is kind of reductive, or at least it will be because the show isn't even out yet.
However, that drama was kind of microscopic compared to what happened next. Now, this drama happened months after that initial teaser trailer came out, but it was when Glitch had announced the voice acting cast for Knights of Guinevere. So, Glitch says, "We are so excited to announce the voices behind Knights of Guinevere. Shout out to all these talented actors who will be bringing the show's terror to life." And then they show this graphic of pretty much all the actors, all the characters and whatnot. Now, I want to make a quick side note to say that one of them I actually know very well. Not like personally or anything, but I knew of her way before this. Erin Nicole Lindquist. And it's funny because she actually voices one of the characters in Garten of Banban. She voices this character called Queen Bouncelia. She's like a purple kangaroo. So it's so funny how she went from purple kangaroo to a dystopian society where she voices an old lady who's like a really corporate overlord crazy person. Now, out of all the voice actors here, the one that a lot of people had a lot of issue with was Sung Wong Cho, aka Frozd. See, and you guys say women are the ones that get stigmatized in the industry. He's the only dude here, and he's the one that got singled out, guys. Justice for all the men in the world. Frozd, who was very popular doing basically like skits and stuff, also doubled as a voice actor. He's a really good voice actor as well. And he, a long time ago, back in the 2020-2021 era, was accused of having a take that was relating to voice acting. Specifically, the take goes basically along the lines of, if your character is of a certain race and you are not the race of that character, you are not allowed to voice act that character. This take has been plaguing him for years at this point. Like, for example, back in 2023, when he had made a tweet where he was complaining that he was only getting Asian roles and nothing else, and then that turned out into a huge controversy because people were taking in mind his take and saying that he's a hypocrite for complaining about it because this was the world he wanted to live in. So why are you complaining? This like voice actor conversation has been a thing for a very, very long time. It was popularized specifically from that Apu documentary on, Apu from The Simpsons, and made by this comedian called Hari Kondabolu. He basically made an entire documentary about why it's wrong because the Indian guy was voiced, I believe, by a white guy. I think looking back in retrospect, that take is very dangerous and stupid in my opinion. While I do think there are obviously going to be specific examples and outliers that you can point to where getting specific races of people would improve like the authenticity of something, especially if it's more like a cultural show. My example that I always go to is the Boondocks, where it's more focused on black culture. So to get the most authentic experience and to get the best out of the show that you need, I feel like getting black people to voice the black characters, I think that's what gets the best out of that specific show. But if it's like something like Cleveland from Family Guy, he was voiced by a white guy. I think he quit during the height of like BLM and stuff. And while I respect the reasoning and consideration, I don't agree much with Cleveland being required to have a black voice actor if what they needed out of the voice actor can be done by somebody who isn't black, right? The less restrictions, the more freedoms people will have to voice any character they want. Once again, this is a hot button issue topic back then, and it came up again in Knights of Guinevere. A lot of people say that Pros D basically had the take, and when this came out, people looked at his character and thought that it was a white dude, and obviously Pros D is
Singwan Sungwon, Sungwoo Sungwon, Sungwon Sungwon, Sangwon Sungwon.
Not white. So a lot of people had a problem with it because they're like, whoa, why don't you stick to your guns and voice only Asian characters? And this was mostly by the, how I say, the anti-woke people. The reason I'm making this distinction will be very apparent later on. A lot of the anti-woke people who hate wokeness, they feel like him voicing this character is contradictory to his take. Now, I was kind of someone that believed that for a long time, and obviously you got to stick to your guns. If you have a controversial take, you got to stick to it. But out of curiosity, I actually wanted to look back and see what exactly he said, because I remember watching videos of it, and the people that I was watching who were like so sure that he said this weren't providing any clip or anything of like a take that he said there. I went ahead and did some digging into it because I was just like curious. And from what I was able to dig up, he literally never said that you have to be the same race as a cartoon character that you voice.
You being an Asian, actor, voice actor, not actor, everybody talks about diversity, and I'm not here to like be too controversial or point fingers or anything like that. But, speaking of diversity and you now starting to venture out into live action acting, how do you feel about, I guess, you being, again, being Asian? Do you feel like your opportunities are limited? Or do you feel like more opportunities would be open to you if you were, a white male, being by what you've seen so far?
I definitely would have more opportunities if I were white. For sure. There's no doubt about that. I think there have been changes in a positive way. And not just for, Asians, but for all, for different races, different genders, there have been steps and it has been improving. I mean, even comparing now to let's say 5-10 years ago, it's definitely changed. I think studios are much more aware of, hey, we should, cast authentically. There have been some good steps. We still have a long way to go, and I'm just hoping that as time goes on, more and more doors will open for diverse talent.
That is very smart, and I think also kind of like what you were saying, you're just finding more opportunities for actors who haven't been given the chance.
Yeah.
Because you would hear in the past, we just don't know any actors of that ethnicity,
Right.
and it's like, yeah, well, they're out there.
But look.
Yeah, find them. So I think it's been getting better over time. Like a lot of sides now are like open ethnicity for like, okay, we're not going to establish the race of the character. Like anyone can read for it, and that's, I think, great. I would love to see it more going that way. It's been a predominantly white set of actors in the past, and now you're getting to see more diversity, and it's good.
And I looked at that and I'm like, wow, that's actually kind of crazy. So unless there was another clip that was said, a lot of creators were shitting on this guy for no reason. It basically caused him to completely quit Twitter, and understandably so, because he just got fucking harassed. Keep in mind, these are the same people who claim that they hate cancel culture and they don't want cancel culture to be a thing, and then proceeds to try and cancel someone they don't like. Now, you can call it virtue signaling, you can call it pandering, you can even disagree with him if you want to, but this is not him saying that you have to be the same race as the character that you're voice acting. I feel like you would have to do a lot of mental gymnastics in order to come to that conclusion. And as you saw in the clip, any mention of it being harder for him is regarding live action, which is not the same as cartoons, which is where this argument stems from. But anyways, I'm not here to start a frenzy. I wanted to clear up the record and at least try and do some change, because I do really feel bad that he got viscerally harassed because of a take that he didn't even have. It's basically a game of dumbass ass telephone where people were just passing on a message that wasn't even there. And it's that bullying of somebody that I really don't like, because once again, all he's doing is voicing a character. And also the funniest thing about this drama is that in the end, it turned out that Orville, who is the character that Praz D is playing, was actually Korean the entire time, according to Dana herself. So even if there was something about him saying that he only supports certain races being able to voice the characters of that same race, in this specific case, people were bitching the whole time for virtually nothing. And guys, if you guys still are like, no, he said something, I promise he said something. Well, I asked the Lord and Savior himself, good old Grok, and Grok literally said that he never said that. So that's how you know it's true. Now, you're probably asking, why did I single out the anti-woke people? Am I really part of the woke mob? No. I'm not. I'm just a fucking loser who sits behind his computer. I don't care about shit like that. The main reason why I pointed out the anti-woke people is because basically the woke people had basically done the same thing. Harassed someone who was part of the show based on an assumption made by them that ultimately got one of the people working on the show harassed. The only difference is, whereas this is a voice actor of the show, these guys were harassing Dana Terrace. So to set the stage, this mainly involves another one of the main characters of the show named Frankie, who, as you can tell, is a buff tomboy type of character that has an obsession with Guinevere and has a lot of these illusions as well, where she imagines these little creatures. When the pilot episode of the show came out, a lot of people liked her as a character, and there were some really interesting things about her that people were wondering about and ultimately created theories about, because that's what comes with the environment, right? Once again, like, for example, what was up with her illusions of Guinevere and the imaginary friends? You have her seemingly abusive relationship with her boss, and that being the reason that she may have lost a couple of her teeth. Some even speculated that she might have a crush on Guinevere herself. And one thing I'm wondering about is that weird party trick with her opening bottles with the eyes. Well, what is that about? Why is no one talking about that? It's weird as hell. Now, one speculation that was going around was the possible idea that Frankie was actually trans. This mostly was talked about because of her name specifically, where, for example, they had her boss calling her Franklin in the show.
Well, ain't this a fucking howdy do, Andrea? Franklin.
Other people were calling her Frankie in the show.
Frankie, behind you!
And her actual name is Francesca, and Guinevere calls her that.
Hello, Francesca. Hello, Andrea.
This headcanon about her being trans was going around, and eventually asked to Dana Terrace, and this is what she responded with. Hey Dana Terrace, just wanted to ask, is Frankie trans? I have seen discussions about this online, and I think that it would make sense as different people call her different full names. And then Dana Terrace says, Frankie is cis, she just has a lot of nicknames. I have friends who call me Dan, Debo, Danny, just happens sometimes. Now, keep in mind, this is all she said. It wasn't like demeaning or offensive to anybody she was talking about. She just said that Frankie and Franklin was a nickname. That's it. It wasn't that deep. And the theory doesn't really make sense anyway, because that would mean that Guinevere was actually dead naming her in the show, and I don't think Dana would be cool with that. Either way though, that did not gel well with other people, and they started vehemently harassing her and quite literally implying that she's transphobic. Bro, the level of mental gymnastics here is insane, bro. I just want to be clear here because I do want to highlight the actual sensible people, but there were fans who responded respectfully to this and accepted the fact that the theory was wrong and kept it pushing. You know, the normal reaction. But sadly, there were a weirdly large amount of people on platforms like Tumblr and Blue Sky, which if you guys don't know is like Twitter, but is just a place for really cool artists that share cool art, and also an echo chamber for crazy lefty loosies. That are crazy would be an understatement for those guys. These fucking people were dragging Dana Terrace completely through the mud about this and saying that she doesn't support trans people and is transphobic because the character that she made doesn't fit into their headcanon, so therefore she's bigoted because of that, even though this show has characters that would make grums start frothing at the mouth. It's funny too because these guys would just assume that a girl who happens to be more masculine is trans. I feel feel like that's a little weird and bigoted myself. I'm not gonna hold you. I don't know. That's just me though. Either way, this is obviously an insane overreaction and really strange too. Dana Terrace is very open about having representation in her shows. Like in The Owl House, when she showed off an open lesbian couple on TV, which is quite literally one of the few that gets shown on TV, especially Disney. And this wasn't just any lesbian couple. Like, it wasn't just like two girls that were kissing in the background, but it was the main character of the show. And this is something which a lot of corporations would notoriously be against. So to think that she would be against trans people just because a character that you assumed was trans was actually not is so stupid. And that, my friends, is the textbook definition of delusional. Imagine having that big of an ego that you try to bully one of the creators of the series to have their vision of the show be demanded. Like, you guys are no better than the annoying anti-woke people that was trying to slander the One Piece live action, where there were people complaining that a character in the show was Middle Eastern, and they got a Middle Eastern woman in there where she plays a character named Vivi, and if you look at Vivi, she's definitely not the brownest character in the world. But people were mad that she was Middle Eastern instead of white, when the setting that the arc takes place is based off the Middle East. And also, the creator of One Piece handpicked the characters. Are you saying that the mangaka of One Piece is wrong or something? Like, what? My whole point in saying this is that it's a loser behavior no matter who's doing the bullying and harassing. And dog, the reactions from Tumblr were extremely unhinged too. Like, dude, look at this. I have to highlight a couple of these because these are actually so insane. I usually don't RB stuff like this, but I'm a little sad to see something like this come up about someone who created something I love. I really hope Dana Terrace takes this as a learning experience to do better and doesn't go down some turf rabbit hole. Like, I do think this probably came off from a place of frustration mixed with unconscious cis white womanhood bias rather than any actual malice. So I hope she does at least take this as a learning experience to do better. Or maybe, just to stick with me here, she just wanted to make a masculine woman in her show. Like, what are these weirdos on, man? I'm looking at this again and it's so striking to me how it makes the story worse. I'm forced to conclude that this show isn't written as well as I thought. Taking Dana at her word here, this is just a silly, tonally dissonant, and needlessly confusing. Remember guys, the fact that a character is a cis woman instead of a trans woman, that's apparently needlessly confusing to this person. Then she says, like, if this is the way she treats Frankie, who's been cis this whole time, by the way, then they compare it to what they call gruff, abusive father Mick Tooth Ripper being a goofy little guy playing into this goofy little quirk. What is wrong with you, bro? Like, once again, it's just like so weirdly scornful and hateful. It's weird. I have quite literally never seen a group of people harass a creator because of their own headcanon before. But once again, I guess it's 2025, so anything's possible. And the insane part about this is that they're harassing a real person who, once again, is a very open advocate of LGBTQ rights and whatnot, about a character that doesn't exist. As a wise man once said, 90% of the problem with Twitter is creating fictional people while they're real, and real people while they're fictional. Words to live by, my friends. Words to live by. Dana got so much backlash for her own character that she then had to make another response the following day and apologize for her comment, which is crazy she had to do that in the first place, and says that just because Frankie isn't trans doesn't mean you can't have a connection with her character in that way regardless. I don't know, man. This just seems crazy considering these are the people that would disagree with like the anti-woke people harassing the voice actress of Ghost of Yote because she had a post revealing that she's quote-unquote woke, and they correlate that with the game for some reason, but decide to basically do the exact same thing with this show and say its writing is terrible because of a misconception that they had. Luckily though, there were sensible people who were calling out the harassment Dana Terrace was getting, and even Gooseworks, who's the creator of the Amazing Digital Circus, lightly responded to this incredibly dumb situation saying this: "Did you know that fictional characters aren't real?" Yeah, apparently they do need that reminder. It was also funny too, because this situation came before another drama that Knights of Guinevere got into, with Glitch releasing merch for the show after the release of the pilot episode, so people can support it. Well, apparently you can't even sell merch without people getting angry, because there were people that were upset that merch was being sold since they feel like it's hypocritical to the actual message.
Since the release of the pilot, some fans have been upset about the official merchandise. Let me explain. So, a key point throughout the pilot is how Park Planet created and misused Gwen for profit. All of the merchandise, marketable plushies, and the park itself is a critique on corporate greed. Like with the rest of Glitch's shows, there was a new line of merch, featuring lots of cool items like plushies, pins, and posters. Some fans were upset at this, saying how it was ironic. They critique Disney for their practices but do the same thing, that it contradicts the whole point of the pilot.
True, dude. That's so true. You're so right, King. You guys are so woke. It's not like they sell merch to directly fund the show or anything like that. Nah, that doesn't make any sense. No, it goes to their corporate overlords. Them. Also, quite literally, every show that's on Glitch has a merch line. So why would this show be any different? It's like these dumb fucks don't even watch Glitch or anything like that and just wants to be angry about every little thing. Meanwhile, the creators and everyone behind the show just wants to make a dope show. And that's it. The creators behind Knights of Guinevere even released this letter where all they said was they wanted to make a dope show. And that's what they're trying to do. And I feel like these people aren't even fans of the show or don't even watch the show or anything like that. It's just stupid, man. I don't know. So in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I think whether you're an anti-woke loser who thinks it's okay to harass people or a woke loser who thinks it's okay to harass people, you are both losers regardless, no matter the echo chamber you sit in. And that, my friends, is the beauty of true equality. Everyone can go fuck themselves. Always research things that people say and don't let headcanon make you harass people. I know, very hard things to do. And with that, I bid you adieu. Goodbye, my friends. Goodbye.